So welcome to NUMA, everyone. If you are looking to sign up for a mailing list or learn more about NUMA in general, scan the QR code and that'll take you to our link tree. Quickly, we have a community service event going on soon, and we have Cassie who can talk about that. We had a graphic, but it wouldn't load into the presentation. So Cassie, take it away.
Yeah, so can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So on April 5th from 7 to 8 p.m. EST, we'll be holding a service event, Cranes for a Cure. So everyone will be learning how to fold paper cranes, and then we'll be donating it to Joey's Wing Foundation. And what they do is they take all these cranes that are donated to them, and then they make these very elaborate art pieces with them, and then use the money that they make with that to donate to cancer research and other services to support cancer patients. But yeah, everyone is welcome. I'll have a link in the chat. If you are interested, please fill that out. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cassie. We really look forward to that event. And yeah, check out the flyer that Issa sent into the chat. That has more information on it. And we don't have any other announcements for tonight, so we can get right into the panel. So introducing our panelists, we have a great spread of people. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And we can just hop into it. Could we do quick intros? A little bit of a background and maybe your education and work history. And we could go left to right to start. So we could start with Meredith.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Meredith King. I'm a marketing manager at Natixis Investment Management. I graduated from Keene State in 2018 up in New Hampshire. Degree in journalism and public just fell into my lap when I figured marketing aligned well with PR and was welcoming the opportunity to further my knowledge. And it's been a great role for me so far to explore between advertising, marketing, global marketing, US marketing, and all of that. I was hired full-time this July for a marketing management role. I started off concurrent role kind of focuses on our U.S. institutional channel and consultant relations teams with our portfolio clarity and Natixis solutions groups and product development unit, as well as SMA businesses. So, yeah.
Awesome. We can go to Karen next.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. So my name is Karen Yazigi, and I wanted to share my background. So I've done a couple different things in my career so far. I started out selling ad space for iHeartMedia, and then I moved to New York City and launched a Spa and Barney's department store. And then from there, I moved to Boston and had a couple of different roles in customer service, sales, and marketing, and in marketing at John Hancock. And most recently, my job is to acquire new members for a wellness program that's attached to a life insurance policy. So I basically work with life insurance agents and to have them sell our solution to potential customers.
Awesome. Let's hop to Mia.
Meredith, Karen, it was nice to hear your introductions and good to meet you both. I'm excited to be on the panel this evening. I'm still actually attaining my undergrad education from Northeastern, so great to be alongside other Huskies. I'm graduating this coming May and excited for that to be in person, but started my co-op career in marketing. I was on the digital marketing team at Education First, a travel company in Cambridge, then joined the venture scene in Boston by getting connected with the folks at _VC, a local Boston-based venture capital firm investing in seed and Series A at the B2B SaaS level, and started with them as a community and marketing internship that went through the summer and bled into the fall semester. Then loved the team so much and was excited by the space that was finance, and actually decided to switch my major from marketing to finance while still definitely interested in both, and self-developed a co-op on the investment team. And then just recently, with taking advantage of asynchronous classes and a smaller course load, I joined full-time this January as the chief of staff to one of the founding partners. So now sitting on the investment team and supporting across operations and marketing. So excited to answer any questions this evening and to meet everyone.
Awesome. That's so exciting to hear, kind of a Northeastern like co-op perspective. Great. So we can go to Erin.
Hi there. So nice to meet you all. Erin Capasso, Global Marketing Events Manager from Boston Consulting Group. I've been with BCG for just over 9 years now, and my connection to Northeastern is the really wonderful experience that I've had directly with the co-op program. So BCG has an agreement with Northeastern where we have co-ops every 6 months. I've worked with well over 6 or 8 people, and I think I've hired directly 5 people to come back for either part-time or full-time roles. So big advocate of Northeastern. Personally, I went to Marist College, and from there did a couple of different jobs for a year or so, always in events. That's my passion. Before BCG, I worked at Bain & Company, another consulting firm, for a little while, at DMC, a destination management company, for a little while, and a healthcare pharmaceutical event planning company, where I was able to go to New Orleans and Switzerland and like my first month on the job, which was a whirlwind for graduating. But more recently, and my time at BCG has been focused on building out our global event team. So we support all of the client events that BCG hosts to drive our brand globally, which is really exciting. So happy to answer any other questions that come up today.
Awesome. We can hop to Jarrett.
Hello, everyone. Jared Etheridge, Digital UX Specialist at BCG as well. I actually graduated from Northeastern in 2017. So my first co-op was and I had a concentration in marketing and MIS. My first co-op, I was at John Hancock. Second co-op, I was at VMware. Third co-op, I was at BCG. And 5 years later, I'm still at BCG since my last co-op, which has been really exciting. And a lot of what I do is kind of on the opposite side of Erin from the marketing perspective, where I'm working more on the digital side. So that's web, social, email. And my role is just only been more focused on user experience since then.
Great. And then we have, is it Yale?
It's Yael, but all of us
Oh,
no one gets it right. Hi, everyone. I'm Yael Herman. Nice to meet you all. I'm very happy to be here today. I am a global marketing associate at BlackRock, specifically on the brand activation team. We focus on driving the BlackRock brand really across our clients and other audiences, so employees, potential employees. And right now, I graduated from the University of Miami, and I actually started my career in traditional advertising. So I worked at Gray Advertising for a couple of years, and then I worked for a smaller startup called NationsWell, and then I made the switch to BlackRock, and I've been here for about 2 years. So excited to answer any questions.
Awesome. So that sounds like amazing. We have a great variety of backgrounds. You know, we've got sales, we've got events, kind of everything across the board. So great that we have such a wide range of perspectives tonight. So to hop into our next question, which we'll also have everyone answer, can you tell me a little bit about your current role and what your day-to-day looks like? And I guess for now we can go in the same order. We'll try to switch it up later on so that you guys aren't, stuck. But yeah, we can start again with Meredith.
Awesome. I may be on a bit of a delay. I'm seeming to have some connectivity issues right now. So apologies for that. A lot. I cover a lot of different channels within Texas. Currently, right now, my main focus is on our US institutional side, also sort of updating and making sure a lot of our materials are compliant for the team, for especially our sales folks, making sure that they have the most information possible to share with clients. Website, help create web articles for the team, videos. I'm kind of across the video team and a lot of our external sales folks as well. So it can be a very, very day-to-day, I'm doing a lot of different things. You have your hand in a lot of different buckets, but always interesting, and on our global advertising team, and have since moved over to our U.S. institutional marketing team. So lots of changes, but it's been great to kind of grow within the role.
All right, I think I'm up next in line. So I had mentioned that I work for a wellness program inside of a John Hancock life insurance policy. So what I do every day is basically develop this strategy across segments. Oh, is Meredith still talking? I can't tell.
That might be her.
I think you're good.
Yeah, I think it's just the delay.
Oh, okay. I saw your mouth moving. So we have business goals. It's either to increase sales or increase engagement of the wellness program. And so my job is to take those two business goals and then look at our audience segments, which is some of them are B2B, some of them are D2C. And I basically say, okay, how can I come up with a marketing plan to achieve our business goals? And I craft messaging that's appropriate to all of the audiences and different plans. It could be digital advertising, it could be direct mail, it could be whatever is appropriate. And so again, the goals are to have producers sell our product, and then once they sell the product, make sure that their client is engaged in the wellness solution. So that is essentially my job.
Well, following the line of progression of panelists, up next, I guess, is myself, and I'm happy to speak towards what I do day to day in this role as Chief of Staff, and then perhaps during open Q&A, happy to talk to what I did during my internship and co-op as it varies. But as it relates to the Chief of Staff, I think the role of the Chief of Staff varies based on the team and executive that you're supporting. For the partner I support at Underscore, being a venture capital fund, I will describe my responsibilities as falling into three main buckets. The first being portfolio support, so attending board meetings, supporting the portfolios with the upcoming key milestones and any hires that they need to make, and etc. The second bucket would be around the partner operations, so supporting him or her, and in this case him, with his day-to-day operations in terms of scheduling, calendaring, making sure he's keeping up to date with the key contacts he wants to do in his network, any speaking engagements, etc. And then that third bucket, this is the part that I find varies within Chief of Staff serving executives and VC, but my third bucket is supporting Underscore as we look towards our future funds. So how Underscore raises capital to then invest in entrepreneurs. So engaging with what is called limited partners, LPs, those folks that invest in venture capital funds, and building relationships with them, sourcing new relationships, and kind of driving towards potential commitment towards a future fund we might raise. That third bucket can also vary for other Chief of Staff, whether it's supporting more on the investing side or the marketing side. So it's really neat how roles can evolve and be different at different funds. But that's a little look into my day-to-day.
I think I'm next. Day-to-day. I would say a day-to-day is completely different. Every single day is a little bit different, but in terms of what do I do, I was formerly the North America marketing events manager. So we were responsible for the client events in the US. And more recently, as of January 1st, we've created this new center of excellence where we really support the business and the client events globally under this new program and structure of a center of excellence, which is really exciting and a big change for us. But I think we'll be able to reach a lot more BCGers and clients from approaching it in this way. In terms of what we're trying to accomplish, it's really being able to amplify our brand, BCG's brand, and our content through event experiences. So in the past year, we've become Zoom experts, which I didn't think I'd ever be, or WebEx experts for a little while. But before then, and hopefully in the near future, in-person programming is bringing these experiences to life in many different forms, which is the favorite part of my job, honestly. And I would say on a day-to-day basis, it's really exciting. And the reason why I stayed at BCG, or one of the reasons why I stayed at BCG for so long, is because our function has the opportunity to interact with so many different groups of individuals. So we have many different customers. We have the partners who own our firm. We have our marketing colleagues that we interact with. We have executive assistants and MVPs. We also have the clients of our firm. So we interact with the folks that we're working to support overall as a company and to drive commercialization. So there's a bit of brand amplification and also a focus on return on marketing investment as well, which keeps us on our toes and keeps us really strategically thinking. And day to day, really, it's about the people that we get to work with and the folks on our team that we have lots of, in this day and age, Zoom meetings and stand-ups and check-in questions and Slack conversations, and any way we can stay in touch without being able to grab a cup of coffee in person, we try to do so.
I would agree with Erin. I think the people is what keeps me at BCG right now. And also just the flexibility day to day and just all the different projects. You have your hands on everything, so you're just always learning on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of what I do, Erin mentioned amplification through events, and a lot of what I'm doing is amplification through our different digital channels. So that can be bcg.com, our email, our social media. My main objective is BCG.com. So what I do is I look at our different audiences that are coming to BCG.com, whether that is our recruiting audience, those trying to apply to BCG, or it's those users who are more interested in our thought leadership content, which is what our experts would be producing in our MTPs. And so what I do is I look at data, I design. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm watching the traffic that comes into BCG.com. I'm trying to analyze all those different journeys of where the user is starting, where the user is ending, how the user is coming into BCG.com, whether that was through one of the channels, and seeing how they behave differently on desktop than they are behaving differently on mobile. And so what I'm doing is I'm gathering all that data and I'm trying to create an experience that's more catered towards those users. And that's similar to Erin said. I mean, her role changed in January. So there's a lot going on in marketing right now where we're growing. I want to say, Erin, you've been here for 9 years. I've been here for 5 years. I believe my team has doubled in the last 5 years. Yeah. So, and what we're trying to do, and one of our larger objectives is now trying to really understand exactly who those users are when they get to BCG.com and how can we be personalized their experiences even more. Yeah.
So I actually feel like going after Erin and Jared is the perfect transition because my role is actually somewhat adjacent to what both of them do. So I work on brand amplification and basically, I guess another way of looking at it is how does the brand come to life in wherever it is. So that's working with events, that's working with digital, that's working with corp comms, social, pretty much any team that touches the brand we work with. So what's been really interesting about since I joined BlackRock is that BlackRock had really never done brand marketing before. Marketing before my team started about three years ago was very focused on client emails and just like very traditional B2B marketing. And the goal has been really to expand the brand to people who are not our traditional clients. So think journalists, politicians, business leaders, and really try and expand the perception to those groups of people. And it's been really interesting going from establishing what our brand purpose should be 3 years ago to then explaining to our employees what that purpose means and then building our BI. I don't know if anyone knows, but BlackRock completely redesigned its visual identity about 3 years ago. So it's been a really interesting journey going from that initial, what is this brand even meant to be, to really now trying to get that brand identity and feeling out into the world. So that's what my day job is. And I guess in terms of what it actually entails, it's a lot of emails and a lot of meetings every day when you get down to it.
Awesome. a lot of talk about kind of this expansion going on. Interesting to hear multiple people kind of talk about that same theme. And I also heard someone say that they used WebEx for a while, and that just made me want to say I absolutely hate WebEx. I think it's the worst. So good that we're hopefully all on Zoom or some other platform now, because I'm still on WebEx and for my co-op, and it's upsetting me. But all right, we can hop into our next question that talks a little bit about your company culture. So can you tell us about what the company culture at your company is like? And do you think that's kind of industry wide, or is it more, focused towards your particular company that you're at right now? And let's see, we could try to switch it up. So would we want to start with maybe Mia and then go left to right? So wrap around to Karen. Would that work?
That sounds good. I'm happy to kick it off and excited to hear what other folks have to say on this topic. For me, it was one of the main reasons that I was so excited to work with Underscore and kept boomeranging back to the team. I absolutely love the people there. I think it's one of the utmost important things when considering your full-time career choice. In terms of the culture, I'll speak to Underscore, and then I think the venture industry as a whole, but with Underscore, we're very collaborative. We're a small 14-person team. It's almost like working at a startup in itself. We're on our second fund, and we've been around for 5 years, but I think venture is such a long-term game with the investments that you make, especially at the earliest stage, where you're really building for the long term. And so everyone is very collaborative, work is done with intention, and we really try to live and breathe our core values of trust, actively evolve. It takes a community and extreme clarity. And so you'll see that in our weeklies that we share with the team, in the emojis that we react in Slack messages, and etc. And I think as that relates to the broader industry of venture, it's a fast-paced environment. It's very people-oriented. Everything stems from personal relationships, whether it's investing in a founder or bringing in a key hire, it all comes down to people. So it really, not that you have to be an extrovert, but you have to be very mindful of, having a high emotional intelligence and recognizing that at the end of the day, it comes down to people. So that's a little bit about the culture, but excited to hear from other folks.
Okay, I think I'm up next. So yeah. The culture so I've worked for a lot of different companies, as I said earlier. I've worked for startups, I worked for big companies, I worked for small companies. Obviously, John Hancock is a big company, and I've worked there for over a decade. So I've seen it go through a huge transformation. It used to be very conservative, and just with the state of the world today, it's definitely responded appropriately. So we have all sorts of groups to ensure that we have the right diversity at all levels. And make sure that all ideas are represented, that it's an open culture. So that is definitely something I feel very proud to work at Hancock for, because it's, I would say as far as the industry, I would say John Hancock is very much a leader on that front. And, when we were back in the office, this is before COVID, the environment there is not what you would expect. It's not cubicles. It's not like that. It's more of like it looks like a Google headquarters. It's very contemporary. They have, like kind of these long tables, and you just pull up a seat. You don't even have an assigned seat every day. So maybe some things that you wouldn't expect from a life insurance company is sort of what the environment I work in. And I think that was due in part because about 5 years ago, we shifted our business model. And so, as I mentioned, I work for this wellness program, and that's been pivotal in developing our new brand value. And now that the wellness program is almost 6 years old, we have almost 90,000 members, and we're going through a rebranding of sorts. I heard from some of you earlier on the call that you're working through that with your brands, and we're doing the same. And so now we're sort of, the wellness program was sort of a startup when I started working on it within John Hancock over 5 years ago. And now it's more of an established brand. So we're repositioning ourselves, and that's something that I work on every day. But that's a bit about the culture. I would say it's very flexible, very open-minded. Everybody's working remote, and that's been really great to see.
Awesome. Okay, so we can go to Meredith now, if that works.
Yeah, awesome. So coming kind of straight from graduation into the financial industry, I was prepared to go into more of a creative field before taking this opportunity. And I definitely had a preconceived notion of what the financial industry was before entering it. But I can say that NUTIX for the financial industry, especially being part of the company culture, we really value diverse perspectives here. NUTIX truly loves to give back. They give all their employees paid to get back into the communities that we all are involved in. Being a global company, we have our hand in the local communities, but also try to do some global philanthropy. I think in Boston, we're involved in the Elizabeth Stone House deeply, Strong Little Wanderers, and it takes us events to get all of their employees involved in just giving back. We're really rooted in openness to new ideas, working hard, and creative problem solving, no matter where those solutions may come from. So I think that was kind of something that I'm a little less button up and a little more Jeans Fridays than I expected, but it's been great, and I'm really happy to be just part of the community here at NUTIX.
I think the culture at BlackRock is really incredible. I've only been at 4 companies, but it's my favorite so far. It's a company that genuinely cares about its employees and how they're feeling, and taking into consideration their feedback for different actions that the firm is taking. And I've seen that because I've partnered closely with the talent team for a bunch of employee engagement activations we've done, and there is a genuine appreciation and care for making sure that employees are not overworked or underworked, and that they have flexibility and that they have the benefits that they want and are interested in. So I think that's incredible. We also have there's a lot of focus on being a part of the communities where we work. So we have this program called BlackRock Gives, which I think is amazing. And basically employees can submit a nonprofit for consideration to their local Gives committee, which is made up of employees at every location where we have an office. And then that Gives committee can choose to sponsor that nonprofit. So then there's a lot of volunteer opportunities. The BlackRock gives a match if there are employee donations, that's doubled for that company. There's a lot of things like that that I think are awesome. And then I think it's very cool because it's a very entrepreneurial culture. So basically, if you want to get something done, you just need to raise your hand, propose the idea, and if you get support, they give you the reins and they say, okay, go ahead, you should do it, and kick it off. And one example of that is the podcast that we have. It's called The Bid. This was actually a person on my team had the idea to start a podcast. She drafted she wrote a few episodes of what she thought it could look like, and she pitched it to the head of digital, and he said, go ahead, go for it. And now we have over 100 episodes, and that's just one example of the opportunities that there are, and I love it personally.
BCG. So I don't know, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say it, but it's a work hard, play hard type of environment. So I can't speak too much for the consultants, because the consultants have their own working model, and then there's business services teams. But from a marketing perspective, I mean, it's the reason why I'm still here. And I think it's a reason why a lot of people are still at BCG. I want to say a handful of the marketing directors have been here at BCG for about 20 years already. And it just shows that a lot of it has to do with the people, and then also just being able to, bring your ideas to the table. I had other co-ops, John Hancock and VMware. And when I say John Hancock, it was a smaller division that doesn't exist anymore. But at times I felt like maybe my voice wasn't being as heard, and especially as a co-op, that's a little hard. But when I did come to BCG, I felt like that was definitely coming through, and they were really appreciative of all ideas. And And again, it's only expanding. BCG's, our marketing department is hiring like crazy right now. And yeah, I'm trying to think of else. And as for like a work, I mean, our purpose statement right now is unlocking the potential of those who advance the world. And it's really nice to see in our day-to-day work how we're seeing that come through in our content. For example, one of our priorities for a few years now, and a main one for this year, is about climate. And we start to see that a lot come through our day-to-day responsibilities. And then as for like a working atmosphere and the office environment, we recently moved our office to Pier 4 in Seaport, where it has become a very collaborative environment where, you know, it's all about opening ideas. You're not booked seats. It's you go to someone's desk and you collaborate with them. And yeah, Aaron probably has a lot more to talk for too.
No, I would echo everything that you just said, Jared. And so nice to meet another BCGer on a panel that I would have never run in with you unless it was in the office. And Karina in the audience right now, you should chime in at some point as well. Karina was on our team for a while, so she can probably speak to some of the things that we're chatting about. But in addition to everything Jared said, I too have been a BCG for as long as I have because of the people and the opportunities that I've been given. I truly have been given the opportunity to progress my career time and time again. And I think it's sort of hand in hand. I mean, every opportunity that I've been given, I've asked for. So I think that's kind of coming into one of the questions that we'll talk about what advice I would give to you. You should ask for what you think you deserve. But in terms of the culture, I think the sort of value, or one of the values that resonates with me the most, is grow by growing others, and giving people the opportunity to expand their knowledge, their brand, their network within the organization is one of the goals that I make sure anyone on my team has as number one or number two every year. And we revisit it in the mid-year check-in and end-of-year check-in. From a BCG career opportunity, you have exposure to just so many smart people. I know there's smart people at a lot of companies, but just so many smart people that make you want to try harder, do better, think harder, and just learn more about things that I would have never have Googled in my life had I not been exposed to them from a content perspective from BCG. And then I think BCG's work in terms of really enhancing the world, honestly, it sounds a little corny, but it's true. And our commitment to net zero and climate and sustainability just speak volumes. And you can Google BCG's values, but I think the commitment to diversity and growing the diversity amongst our leadership, both from gender and race, is something that the firm has been very vocal and forward about, and that just makes us I think makes people very excited about what the future of BCG looks like. The firm has grown enormously over the past 5 years. When I joined BCG in 2012, it was a team of 2 people that executed events, and we've grown 5 times that since I joined. So it's been really exciting to be part of that progression.
Awesome. Really great to hear that a lot of your companies do community impact focused things like charity and things like that, and community service. And then you also have these really positive internal cultures. So really great to hear, and awesome. So we can hop into our next question, which is about the challenges that you've faced at your current job. So what would you say, oh no, wait, can you still hear me? My AirPods just, okay, great. All right, so what are some unexpected challenges that you've faced in your current role or any position in your industry? And we could go in the same order if that works for everyone. So start again with Mia.
Happy to. I think to share one challenge, and there's always the inevitable ups and downs, but I think one challenge within this role of Chief of Staff is really having to learn how to embrace ambiguity. It's also one of the most exciting parts of the job as well, where every day doesn't look the same, but you have to be kind of quick on your toes, willing to adapt, able to be flexible. And sometimes I like to joke and say anytime that an executive might call you, it's kind of like a pop quiz that you receive in your marketing class or whatnot, where he or she will want you to make sure that you're prepped for them and say, hey, what's this meeting about? Or are you planned with this financial review? Or what do you think about this marketing campaign? And you kind of have to be quick on your feet and ready for an answer. So it's a challenging part of the role, but it's also most rewarding, because when you step out of your comfort zone, that's when you know you're truly growing. So challenging, but a fun part of the job.
So this is more, I guess, career advice and less about my specific company. But I think in Mia's case, where you have such a small company, you really can, if you do a good job, elevate quickly because your presence is so visible. But if you choose larger companies, I think it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, and you have to be your own advocate. And I was recently listening to this podcast, and it was something that I personally could, pass down, is that only a third of what you do as far as like your job duties is recognized. So, so many times I think people get into the trap of, oh, I have these 10 things I have to do. I'm going to do all those 10 things. I'm going to do them well. I'm going to just get it all done. So that's one element of how people perceive you, but there are other elements. So one thing that's really unsaid, but is very important is, your relationship with your boss is critical, because they're going to be your first advocate. But if you only have a relationship with your boss, then you kind of hit this roadblock where if they don't advocate for you, you're silenced, right? Like there's, you need to, set up coffee talks with people cross-functionally, set up coffee talks with people who are 2 levels above, your boss's level. Because when those types of conversations are happening about, hey, who would be really good for this project? Or hey, who would be really good for this role? It's better to have a broader set of people that know you and say, oh, I know Rachel, she does really good work at Northeastern. And, so that's my advice there is your actual to-do list is only a fraction of what is going to dictate your success in a company, especially if it's large.
And I think that's a great transition. I can kind of piggyback right off of that. Just to, especially now that we're cross company connections with people, because you're not just running into them in the coffee room or the break room. You have to really make an effort to reach out and make those connections with them. But another was I had very, very minimal background in finance. So not only was I learning everything that comes with marketing, coming from a journalism and PR background, but I was also trying to learn all of the financial terminology. This seems to be a place with like hundreds of about who does what and who stands on top of learning the marketing for the team as well. So I think that was a bit of a challenge, but from learning from that, it was just about taking my own time and learning that on my own time and taking as many chances as I can to just do external learning opportunities with different meetings and just kind of learn as much as I can. And I think that's helped me a lot. And I think financial marketing itself comes with its whole own set of rules and terminology, just being so highly regulated. So kind of learning where to dodge challenge for me as well. But I think we're past that now. And I think as long as you always keep learning,
I'm not sure if I should go yet.
Yeah, I think it's the video's lagging, but she's all set.
Okay. To kind of build a little bit on what both Karen and Meredith said, I think the biggest challenge for me was realizing that I need to be my own advocate for my work. and that people don't, I could have the most eternal to-do list and do the most amazing job, but if people don't know that you're doing that job, it's not going to go anywhere. And that has been personally hard for me because I don't really like to talk about what I do. So I've had to figure out what's the right balance to do that, what's the right way to develop those relationships so that it's not, I feel like sometimes people say, oh, you should network, and networking sounds really cold and transactional, but what's the right way to do that so that you're developing relationships and providing value? And at BlackRock in particular, for any job that you're going to want to move to, if you want a promotion, if you want to switch to a different team, you have to get what's called, I don't even know, but it's basically a committee of 4 people at least on top of your manager who are going to speak on your behalf. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, well, I don't know if I have 4 people that I can name off the top of my head. I have maybe 10 people that I could be like medium advocates, but not 4 that I know are going to go to bat for me. So to add to what Karen was saying, someone actually gave me great advice, which was make sure that you know what your brand is when you're not in the room. And it's kind of uncomfortable, but if you have people that you trust, that you can ask, what is the perception of me? What do people recognize as my strengths? What do people think are my weaknesses? And then kind of figuring out how you can work and address those. I think that's key. And then also to raise your hand for opportunities. If you're interested in a stretch assignment, raise your hand for that. Make sure that your manager knows that you're interested in that and that you want that. And make sure you're in constant communication with your manager, with your teammates, that you understand what's happening, that you're understanding the industry, your role, your team. So yeah, be a big advocate for yourself. I'd say it's my biggest challenge and the biggest lesson I've learned.
Kind of bouncing off of what a few people have said, the industry and really trying to understand the industry has been an unexpected challenge for me, whether it was at BCG or in the finance industry in my other co-op or in the software industry for my other co-op too. And as marketers, that's really important to us because we need to understand who our clients are. And I typically say it's usually the B2B businesses where it's a little more challenging for marketers, especially coming from a co-op, because you don't really get to see a lot of the customer facing side of things. So I think during my time as a co-op, it wasn't until about 3 months in where I really started to understand a little more about how the business functions day to day outside of marketing, and then how marketing plays a role in that. That's one. The other one would be, because I work in a very digital space and it's very fast moving and it's always evolving, half my job feels like I'm teaching others and the other half is actually doing. And I think many of us go through that day to day. But if you think of digital and social media and when it started, and then you also look at this new space called user experience that's now evolved, and you look at companies like Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, where they really have a focus on user experience. And again, it's always evolving, especially with the personalization side of everything. And so I feel like at times it's a little challenging to do the work, but also have to educate at the same time. But at the end of the day, it does feel very rewarding because you become the expert in that space. Yeah.
So many good answers. I think, and in terms of what's challenging for my role specifically, typically events at BCG have sort of peaks and valleys, so really busy times and then times where you're sort of ramping up for a really busy time. So I think being able to manage your workload and set expectations and manage work-life balance, and I now have a family and a 2-year-old that I need to balance in addition to working, so I actually can't stay online for forever and ever, has definitely been a challenge along the way. And it's being able to set those boundaries, but knowing that you have people to support you to set those boundaries has been a big unlock for me, and being able to sort of share that and represent that for the team is really important, that I'm not sort of broadcasting bad behavior and creating difficult things for them as well. I think just touching upon this past year, the biggest challenge was really showing the organization that we still had so much value to bring to them and to our clients for events and a virtual experience perspective. There are so many people in the event industry that lost their jobs or were on furlough, and I never was worried about that working for BCG, and I think we were really able to kind of hit the ground running and think through where can we engage with our clients in a Zoom or in a WebEx, no more WebExes, but in a Zoom environment. So that was a challenge for sure, but I knew I had BCG supporting us along the way, and my manager and our leadership globally, which made it possible. So I guess twofold, both the role from a Peak and Valley perspective, but also as an event person, just trying to continue to show how you're driving commercialization for the organization.
Awesome. Yeah, some really great advice peppered in there to, advocate for yourself. I think that's something that as, college students, as co-ops, is something that's scary, and maybe that's something that people don't want to do. So definitely something that I think everyone kind of needs to hear, and it's good to hear that it works, from people who have gone through the process already. Awesome. So let's see, it is 7:51. So for our next question, I think we'll have only 3 of you guys answer it, just so we can, get through all of them by 8, so we can do audience questions. So for our next question, we have, how has your company adjusted its marketing strategy during this time of volatility? And do you have examples of what has worked versus what hasn't? I think it'd be great to have maybe Aaron, Karen, and Yao go, because we've got events, we've got a couple of different perspectives there. And then we'll do the next 3 for the next question.
Sure, happy to. So as I kind of touched upon, I'll continue some of the points that I made just previously. We were set to have our largest program in April of last year. So we spent the last 2 weeks of February in a war room of sorts, thinking through what was this going to look like. I mean, in the middle of February, we weren't sure if this thing that was in a different country was going to affect us, and very quickly it obviously was going to. So I think that was a big pivotal point for us to have to completely shift gears and cancel a really, really large program that we had worked 11 months to execute, and had to make the really tough decision, which of course ultimately, and looking in hindsight, seems like a no-brainer, but at that specific time it was jarring to make that decision. And then in the probably week that followed, we ramped up pretty quickly. We hosted our first virtual roundtable on Sunday, March 17th, I want to say. And from March 17th until December 31st, we hosted 120 roundtables for clients, which is 10x times what we normally do, or maybe more than that. I think it was 800x times more than we normally do. So we really hunkered down to see how we could support the business, which was hard and it was busy. But we were able to show leadership that it had a real impact, which was really exciting.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. Yeah, so I'll get to the COVID question, but just before we do that, we talked about advocating for yourself and doing it in a non-creepy way that you might still feel comfortable doing. So that's personally something I've struggled with over the years, and now I feel like I'm finally in a good place. So happy to share some things. I always feel more comfortable, let's say, bragging about myself if it relates back to data. So if you say, I sent this email, it had this open rate, it led to this many applications, or whatever the stats are, if you could pull the data and share that with your boss, it tells your boss that you're great without you saying you're great. And so that's something that I found to be effective. And then the other thing I started doing is every quarter, I make a list of all the things that I did that quarter. And it's just like 5 things, 5 huge accomplishments. I did this, I drove sales and did this much. I sent out this campaign and it had this many people sign up. So those types of things, just a quarterly email. And the way I frame it is I say, to my boss, if you would like to send this to your boss as an update for how good your team is doing, then feel free to do so. So that's just a piece of advice for me that I've learned along the way that's been helping, in case it helps anybody else. But to answer the COVID question, so we have a wellness program, and basically people earn points if they do healthy things, and if they get points, they get rewards like Amazon gift cards. The program comes with either an Apple Watch, Fitbit, or Amazon Halo wearable device. So there's like really cool perks that come with participating. So essentially before COVID, you could go to a gym and get points. And then when gyms closed, nobody could go anywhere. And so we have started allowing at-home workouts. And then the second thing is you get points for going to the doctor. People didn't want to go to the doctor. So we mailed Quest Diagnostics medical kits for free to people to submit their own biometrics and then send it back to us to get credit. So things like that. And there's a lot of examples that are like that. I won't go into detail, but basically it's focusing on digital solutions instead of in-person things.
And then for me, it was a little bit of a combination of both. What Karen and Aaron said, it basically boiled down to listening to our clients and what they needed, and then really doubling down on our purpose. So we also hosted a ton of events just to try and respond to clients in real time to what they were asking and what they needed. And then once the initial shock of we're home, the world is paralyzed, we're off, we were able to see a little bit further down the line and think of what are clients' biggest concerns and what are they asking us, and how can we as a company respond to those questions. And so one of the things that we did, which is one of the projects that my favorite projects that I've done at the company, it was a lot of the retirement clients were coming to BlackRock and saying, a lot of my employees are taking money out of their 401k because they need to fund short-term expenses, or we're laying off a lot of people. We need to help. What can we do? And so we actually partnered with our social impact team, and we did an event in November that answered that question, like how can people save for the long term when they can even meet their needs for the short term? And we brought together a bunch of different client managers and external speakers and thought leaders just to try and answer that question for clients and give them specific actions that they could take and discuss potential moves that the industry as a whole could do. So it was really, really a lot of fielding surveys and checking with relationship managers just to see where clients were and trying to keep a pulse, but not just what's happening in the world and what our clients need, but based on what BlackRock does as a company, what's the intersection and how can we respond and how can we help? So it was also very intense, but very focused on our purpose.
Great. All right. Thank you guys for that. We are going to hop into our question about job opportunities because we are a little bit close to 8 o'clock and I want to open up the floor for audience questions. So we'll have all of you guys answer this question. And it is, are you hiring for any co-ops or internships or even full-time opportunities? And what would be some advice that you have for someone that's looking to apply to one of your roles? Oh, and we could start with Meredith again. We can go left to right.
Awesome. Yeah. So New Texas has a really robust co-op program that we do every semester. I think we have anywhere from 8 to, and we also do a shorter duration summer internship program. And just for advice for looking to get hired, I would just say come in with, when I'm hiring co-ops, and show your passion, be a team player. All cliche, but I think it gets you really far to be remembered. You have to be ready to wear many hats, especially in marketing. But be confident enough to kind of, like you said, set your boundaries as well, and passion, and show your accomplishments on paper, and be ready to back that up in person as well.
Awesome. And then we could go to Karen.
So I, to this day, still get really, really nervous if I have an interview. So my best advice there is just rehearse your answers. So I actually would recommend typing all your answers out on a Word doc, and you could Google the most common interview questions. Those are usually the ones that you get. and actually practice out loud and see how you sound. And a good framework is a situation, action, and then the result. So SAR, situation, action, result. And it helps you organize your thoughts as far as how you want to answer or respond to questions. And one other piece of advice that I could say is after you have that Word doc with your questions and answers, what you could do after you talk to the hiring managers, if they ask you any of those questions, you could leave it in a Word doc for them and say, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. You know, I know you're probably talking with several other people. I wanted to recap our conversation. Here's a Word doc of, you know, all of our responses so that you have something to refer back to, you know, when discussing my candidacy. So I find that, you know, people appreciate that extra step. It just, you know, even if they don't even look at it, it shows you're being very detailed, shows you're paying attention in the interview process, and it shows that you care to spend the time to do that. And so to document sort of your conversation, I think is really helpful.
And then just continuing on that, to first answer the question directly, Underscore isn't actively hiring for any new roles, co-ops, internships, or full-time, but there's a lot of Boston-based VC firms hiring for entry-level analyst positions that I'm happy to pass along. And there's also a really neat community called Gen Z VC. It's a Slack group, and they share a lot of interesting roles, both on the investing side, the community side, and the marketing side, if you're interested in working in venture capital, both on a smaller team like Underscore or a larger team as well. So again, happy to pass along those links and invitations. I guess to add in my 2 cents on best practices for getting new, just for leaning into new opportunities, I always leverage references. So whenever I submit a resume anywhere or I'm reaching out to folks for a new opportunity, even if they don't ask, I submit just a PDF of a few quotes that people shared about how their experience is working with me. So that would be my 2 cents.
I lost track of where I was in this order. Let's see, is BCG hiring co-ops and full-time people? I know that we paused on some of the co-op hiring during COVID, but I believe co-op hiring has resumed. In my new global role, I'm not as familiar with the co-op hiring practices, but I know BCG still has a really wonderful relationship with Northeastern, so I believe so, but don't quote me on that. From a full-time perspective, check out BCG's talent and hiring website. I'm much more familiar with the BST roles, which are our business services team, which I'm a member of. The consulting side is handled completely separately, but you can also find that information on our website. And as Jarrett mentioned, our marketing organization is just growing in leaps and bounds. So if that's something you're interested in, I would definitely take a peek. There's many different roles and subgroups and teams that are working on amplifying our brand through many channels. So I guess the short answer is yes.
Yes, global marketing is hiring a lot of co-ops, actually. I want to say at one point we had 10 co-ops that were sitting around me at one point in the office. So it's a large group, and that's just a global marketing team. There's other North America marketing, and it's only been expanding. It was a little weird during COVID last year, but I think we have been back up on track to hiring as we were about a year ago. Just quick advice from an interview perspective, because I've also had the opportunity to interview some of the co-ops, and we have a co-op currently. The passion, if we see the passion come through, that's important. I think a lot of people hear BCG and they're like, I need to work for BCG because of the name BCG. And we can see that come through as an interviewer. We can start to see that you're only here because the title of BCG. And that usually makes us want to avoid pursuing anything with that co-op. So that's just one word of one thing. So yes, passion, really understanding, for example, digital marketing and user experience. If you came to the interview talking about user experience and examples of how you've seen user experience done really well, that to us, that's a light bulb for us. Yeah, that'd be my advice.
Yeah, and on the BlackRock end, I don't really think we've done co-ops before, but or have, so I have no idea. But I know we definitely do internships. There are many programs. There are scholarship internships. There are summer internships. So definitely check out our website for all of that information and for full-time jobs too. The global marketing department here is growing a ton as well, and there are a few open roles. So definitely check that out. And then in terms of advice, I'd say, on top of what all the panelists have said, which is they're right, is just be prepared. Practice the questions, practice out loud, practice with a friend, so that you're not canned or rehearsed, but so that you can actually focus on answering and giving a good answer in terms of your background and why you want to be there. And I'll echo Jared's comment. I think the passion is the biggest thing for me. I've also interviewed a few people who have applied for internships, and I think you can really see a difference in people when you ask them why they want the role, when they are genuinely excited about what your team does or in learning more about what you do and the role, and working for your company because of what the company does and because they want to have the name on the resume. So I would echo that and make sure that your passion comes through if it's genuine, and honestly, if it's not, find something that you're excited about because it's going to make you grow, not because it's going to look good on your resume. Because if you're just there just because, then you're not going to have that great of an experience and you're not going to grow as you could have had in another place that you're actually very excited to be at.
Awesome. Okay. A lot of really great advice from you guys, and really exciting to hear that there are some opportunities in there for co-ops, any other roles, and definitely important to be passionate about whatever you're pursuing. And I think that's definitely something that's useful to people applying for co-ops and internships, because there is kind of this, like wide amount of stuff to be applying to. And it's easy to not be super, don't have too much discretion in what you're applying to. So yeah, definitely important. So we're going to open it up to audience questions now. If anyone has a question from the audience, I'll leave a couple seconds to shout it out. And I've also gotten a couple sent to me in the chat if no one's ready to ask one. All right, let's see, we did get one question. Let me scroll up for it. Okay, so this is more directed towards Aaron and Jarrett in the consulting space. How did you get into consulting, and how is it tied into what you do currently? So maybe what connects you to the industry?
Do you want to go first, Jarrett?
I was going to say your role is probably a little closer than my role from a consultant perspective. On a day-to-day basis, personally, I'm not as close to the consultant teams. Again, BCG is a very large corporation, and there's a whole business service side of the way it operates. And so personally in my role, I'm not close enough to the consultants to be able to answer this question. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely work with the consulting teams, our client teams, our MDPs, which is an acronym for Managing Director and Partners, but I'm not on a consulting track. And I see another question in here about a full-time consulting role. So I think that is the most frequent question that I get asked in terms of LinkedIn messaging and interview questions. And this is going to sound harsh, so I apologize, but I would just be familiar with who you're speaking to in terms of what their role is and experience is. Because we're a consulting firm doesn't mean that I automatically connect you to a consulting role. And I know that's tough to hear, but it's true. There's an entire team and a massive support system that hires the consulting side of things. So I would encourage you to take a peek at that side of the website. I would say from a consulting experience perspective, I have friends that are consultants. I have some that have absolutely loved it and love the travel aspect and the fast pace and the crazy hours, and have had others that have had sort of different experiences. So I think it's a really personal, individual kind of culture and personality fit as well. I think that's all I have to offer other than the folks that I get to meet day to day.
Yeah, and just to bounce off that real quick, I do get a lot of those messages too, and I feel like there's a lot of co-ops that come through the marketing channel or try to apply to marketing jobs thinking that they can go into a consultant track. The consultant track is pretty strict. These are people who are getting their MBA. They're coming from different schools. So marketing, consulting, two different things.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely good to make that distinction. I see, Isa, you have your hand raised. Sorry if I missed that earlier.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Isa. At NUMA, I'm a graphic designer on our e-board. And I had a question about what all of you guys, your experience with the creative side of marketing has been. Have you interacted with designers? What's your company's take on the creative side of marketing or consulting as well with BCG?
I can answer that because my role is pretty creative. And it's actually funny because one of the things I give advice for co-ops is learn Photoshop. I'm not sure about the other marketers in this room, but there's always an opportunity to be creative, and it's great to lean on someone who has the Photoshop skills. I was the go-to person for Photoshop for 5 years, and it was finally that we had a dedicated resource for that. There's a lot of space for creativity, at least at BCG. And again, my role is half data, half design. So I am using that data, and then I'm producing wireframes at the same time. But a lot of my backgrounds at Northeastern, yes, I did marketing and MIS, but a lot of my minors were in the art school. And so that was taken on those Photoshop class, typography and whatnot. I personally would recommend getting yourself into something creative in college and taking some type of course, because most times in marketing, there is going to be some space for creativity, and it'd be great for someone to be able to lean on you for that.
Yeah, I would just add to that the need for microsites, event sites have just grown exponentially over the past couple of years. We no longer do like agenda pages and PDFs. We have an actual website that people can go to learn more about our program. So the folks on my team that are curious about wireframes and HTML coding, and HTML coding is not necessarily the creative side, it's like the different side of the brain. But I think anyone that has that level of expertise and interest is helpful in the marketing organization, regardless of what your role is. And the other thing I would just add is the way to communicate at BCG to leadership is via PowerPoint slides, or what people call decks. So I think that if you can think visually and think about how you're telling a story, which includes always data, but in a visually appealing perspective, those decks, I think, just help tell the story a little bit stronger.
I'd add to that, in that I think PowerPoints in these types of companies are like, you see them every day and you use them for everything. So if you can kind of avert killing people through a PowerPoint and tell a great story just by your design and the way you're organizing it, that's huge. And specifically at BlackRock, we have a pretty big creative department. It works like an internal creative agency. There's designers, there's writers, there's just general creatives that work with concepting, and it's pretty broad. There's a group that helps with events, obviously, with all of what the visual, all of the assets are going to look like. They support our social channels. They're pretty broad. So I would say that if you're interested in the creative aspect and you're just trying to do it at a financial services company, there's definitely going to be opportunity for that.
I can chime in as well. Thank you for asking the question. It's great that you chimed in here, but I work every day with our creative department, so we work very much hand in hand. And so if, for example, I'm developing a campaign, I will type up a creative brief, and it will outline what the goals of the campaign are, and what the look, feel, and tone should be of the imagery and wording. So we have an editorial team that will help me craft the wording, but I craft the story points. And then, from that creative brief, the designers will actually concept out some ideas. And, if there's a digital component, we'll work with someone like a Jarrett. And, and we also have a group called Human-Centered Design, which is really interesting. It's kind of like, a spinoff of the UX idea. So, yeah, I think, it's definitely, that's how we interface with the designer. So I would say the feeling I want to achieve, do I want to have a male, female, should they be old or young, or what should they look like? And then they sort of interpret my feedback and spit out my vision. So you have to be really good at reading between the lines when people sometimes say it and sometimes they don't say it. You have to be able to translate that into an image.
Awesome. Some really great answers there, and thank you, Isa, for asking the question. So it is 8:15, so we can start to wrap things up. Some of our members, or our audience members, asked if you guys would be open to connecting on LinkedIn with them if they have any further questions or anything like that. Yes? Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay. So, great. So any of our audience members that are interested in learning more or just connecting and networking, feel free to connect with our panelists. And yeah, we are all set. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes, and if anyone wants to stay and network with our panelists, I think we can all stay on for like another minute or two.
Thank you, Rachel and the NUMA team, for organizing this event and for everyone for attending.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great to hear everyone's perspective.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. This was a really great panel. I thought it was so cool to kind of hear all of the different like career paths you guys have had. And it's, yeah, definitely great to get kind of a good background from all over the industry. So we really appreciate it. And also Ryan's on. Ryan's our president. Say hi, Ryan.
Thank you for organizing.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Definitely, it was something we've been doing at the end of our panels recently, is just getting a little bit of feedback from you guys. What do you think worked? What do you think was could be improved upon? Just so we can, you know, always make things better for our next panel.
Personally, I'm the type of person who would like to share a little more. So, okay. You know, if I'm going to talk about user experience and the digital side of everything, I would want to show a little more. And that's something we typically do at the BCG interview, the network events that typically happen every semester. We haven't had it recently because of COVID. That's something I do. I usually bring the computer and just show like exactly, because sometimes it's a lot easier to see it than actually hear it.
Right.
And it becomes a little more engaging.
Got it. That's a good point. So do you think like having like panelist screen share or like doing breakout rooms would be helpful to kind of build that in?
That's exactly what I'm thinking, because I can also imagine all of us are really busy, and at the end of the day, putting together a PowerPoint slide is probably a little too much to ask for, but because we're doing it all day. But yeah, I would say that if there was more of a breakout room, and then we can just share our screen and just talk a little more about what we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
And I would say maybe a smaller panel so that you have more time for panelists to expand a little bit more, and maybe, I don't know how this would work, but maybe pausing for questions after each question that you asked in case anyone has a follow-up or wants to dig a little bit deeper into anything that a particular panelist said.
Good point.
I think from the event side, it was great to see the questions in advance, just to start thinking through places where we could sort of focus in on and think through places where we hadn't thought about in a little while. I think from an event tactical perspective, because I can't help myself, I'm a stickler for time. I'm not rushing anywhere. There's nowhere to go or do at this day and age, but I think it's helpful to just start promptly at the time that you say, or a minute or so afterwards. I'd also encourage anyone to submit questions throughout the conversation so that you can sort of push the questions quickly to the end or get them to us over chat. We use chat for our virtual events all the time. And then I think the one other thing that I would just suggest is have people introduce themselves on the chat so that we know as panelists who's joining us. What year are you? Have you done a co-op? Maybe there's like 2 things that they could answer, just so as we're addressing the questions we can keep in mind. Are these majority of folks that are new in their co-op experience, or they're more experienced co-ops? But yeah, this was great. It was so nice to connect and meet a BCGer I don't know, and to see Karina, who I haven't seen in so long. Hi, Karina.
So good to hear from you, Erin.
You too. I know I owe you an email. I'm like, oh my gosh, Karina emailed me. I didn't email her back. I'm going to do that.
No worries.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys have any other feedback, please feel free to just shoot me an email. You guys, you all have my contact info.